Okay, so working with different buyers from all walks of life, there's one commonality that I see in everybody's mindset, and that is that people have the idea that their first home should be their dream home. Now, there's nothing wrong with that line of thinking. If that's what you want to do, if that's your goal, cool, go for it. However, there are several things that you should have in order and several things that you should know when it comes to buying your first home, whether it's just a home for you to start with or for the home being your dream home. Now, I see a lot of buyers get frustrated because, buying your dream home sounds good, but once you get involved with the banks and they want to see your income and your debt to income ratio, it kind of changes the outlook or the future of the type of home that you can buy. When I bought my first home a little bit over 10 years ago, it was a very small home. It was 900 square feet or 950. It was a townhome. It wasn't the best, but home ownership is cheaper than renting. So I went the home ownership route. I only had to put down like $5,000 at the time. The home was only like $199. So, $200,000 flat. That was just a stepping stone to the next level. That particular home I ended up holding on to maybe for 3 years or so, 4 years. I ended up selling it, and the cash that I received at the table from the equity was around $50,000. Now that $50,000 could have been used to put down on the dream home, but at the time I had already purchased another home that was just a rental home. It turned into an investment property. You can use your first home as a stepping stone to the dream home. Whether you rent your first home out, build equity, and then you take that equity to use as a down payment on your dream home. That's just one way to do it. But there are several things that can slow you down from getting your dream home. So you should prepare for them now if you want your first home to be your dream home. And this is what you should know. The first thing is your debt to income ratio. How much money do you make monthly versus how much debt you have to service monthly? And lenders have a certain ratio that you have to stand between if you're using, for example, FHA loans, or these 3.5% down conventional loans. There are certain ratios you have to have. The other thing is how long have you been employed? Normally it's like 1 to 2 years that they want to see that you've been employed. It doesn't have to be at the same employer, but as long as you've been actively employed for 1 to 2 years, that shows that you have a willingness to work and that you'll pay your bills. Now, of course, you have your credit score. So your credit score only determines your interest rate. It can determine your eligibility for certain down payment assistance programs, but your credit score is pretty much your interest rate. And the last thing is how much money you have to put down. So, when it comes to dream homes, the higher price the home is, the more money you have to put down. So, they look at all of those things, and it's kind of hard to take it into account when you're first buying your first home, because it's an emotional purchase. It's an emotional decision. You got to put all this paperwork together. They got to run your credit, and then you're like upset. You think you can get a $500,000 home, but they come back and say, sorry, you can only afford $300,000. Based on the bank standards. You should learn about these things. Like, if you want to be able to purchase as much home as possible, the best thing you can do is pay off all your debt, whether that's student loans, car loans, personal loans, of course, credit cards. And that way you have 100% of your income, and they can use that to, put that towards purchasing the home. You can plan for either situation. You can say, okay, I'm gonna buy a smaller home or buy a home in my current price range. I'm going to build equity. I'm going to rent it out, buy another home, and then at some point take that equity and use it as a large down payment. Because if you have a large down payment, a lot of these ratios can be bent. The more money you put down, the more flexible the banks become. And also, it's your credit score too. If you have a really high credit score, again, the banks become a lot more flexible. So these are just tactics and things you can use to plan to get to that dream home. It doesn't have to be the first time. Again, with most of these loans, these FHA style loans, conventional loans, they have to be your primary residence for a year. So after a year, you can, move out and turn into a rental property, or you know, whatever your plan is after a year. It's normally 9 months to a year. You have to keep the property. You know, you can live in it for a year, and if it grows equity, you can sell it and roll that equity over onto your dream home. But I just wanted to just give the idea, you know, a lot of people want to buy their dream home, you know, the first time out, and it takes planning. But if you have a really high income, you can do it. So for example, let's just say, for example, you and your spouse both make $100,000 a year and neither of you have debt. In that case, you are a lot more likely to get a hold of your dream home, because that's a high, you know, that's 2 high incomes with no debt. You know, you can get well over $1 million home with that, with that combined income. So just to use that as an example. But again, you know, you should plan for however it is you want to get to your dream home. Some people will be able to get there faster and easier than others, and that's okay. We all have our own, you know, road to the same goal and objective. So I just wanted to just leave you all with that, because I see a lot of people that get discouraged because they want this huge dream home, you know, on their first buy, and it doesn't always work that way unless you plan it out that way.